Hey there guys, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa. It has been a while since I have done any look for less dupes on my channel, and I have been wanting to recreate some. So I thought today would be a perfect day in order to make some dupes for you all. Cricut is a perfect tool for all of your crafting needs, no matter how advanced or how much of a beginner you are in your DIYing. There is a machine and a product for everyone. I have been working with Cricut for many years now, and I enjoy creating custom home decor pieces for my home. And today I'm going to be recreating some amazing home decor finds from some really high-end stores, and we're going to do it for a whole lot less right here. So keep watching. I love Serena and Lily, as you guys know from my previous Look for Less dupes, and I saw these really pretty coasters. For a set of 4, they are asking for $68, and that's on sale. But I knew I can do something very similar with that high-end look, and here's what I came up with. Cricut has these Infusible Ink coasters, and they are so easy to use. Plus, with Cricut's design space, all you have to do is enter the word you're looking for. In this case, I entered vines, and all of the vines that I can use populate right away. When I found the vines I wanted to use, I selected it and I brought it over to my canvas. Then it was a matter of resizing and duplicating it in order to create all of the different vine patterns that were on the original coasters. One thing I like to do whenever I'm recreating these Look for Less dupes is I like to have the images of my original ideas handy so that I can just refer to it whenever I need to, pop it on the screen, and then continue my work. Then when I was done with my placement, I went over to the side menu and picked up a circle. And then I wanted to make it the same size as the coasters. Once it had the same size, I changed the color so I can see the vines a little bit better. And then all I did was select everything and hit slice. This separated all the pieces. I got rid of the ones that I didn't need, and all I was left with that I needed were the vines. And then all I did was duplicate it until I had the number I needed, which was 4. Then all I had to do was hit the green button to make it and make sure the mirror was on. You can see the progress of your project on your Cricut Design Space screen, and once it's done, it will tell you to unload. This is what it looks like, and I went ahead and cut each individual vine section on its own. Now, the reason I chose this particular paper was because it had those varying colors of blue, just like the original idea of the website. And what I like to do is I like to cut little sections like this all around the piece so that whenever I'm weeding, I don't have to weed one large piece. I can actually pull these smaller sections off at a time and make it theoretically a little bit easier for me to weed. Now, let's just have a moment and laugh here, guys, because it has been forever since I weeded anything, and I don't know if it was me. I don't know if this particular Infusible Ink sheet had extra sticky clear paper, but oh my goodness, I was having so much trouble getting everything off. And it's not that it didn't cut through, because it totally did. You guys saw the lines where it cut through, but man, I was having a hard trouble with this. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting old. I'm not sure. But finally, I really was able to get everything off, and yeah, I was able to manage this just fine. But I don't know if you have any additional tips or tricks on this one. I'd take it, because this one really gave me a run for my money. And I always like to be completely transparent and open with you guys. You know, I have been using this stuff for quite some time, and I consider myself, you know, an intermediate, almost expert user with this stuff. And sometimes, you know, it's just not my day, or even I have tough times whenever it comes to these little projects. So I just wanted to let you know that not everything is absolutely perfect when it comes to these DIYs, and that's okay. Alright, so after I was done with all of that weeding, I placed the color side down on the surface of the coaster. Now you want to make sure that the coaster is nice and clean and there's no debris or any dust on it. After you stick this part on, and then you want to get something like parchment paper in order to protect it a little bit more from the heat. Now my large Easy Press is still in storage, but I do have the mini press and it is absolutely the cutest thing ever. So I was able to use this in order to infuse my ink into the coaster. You want to set it at the highest setting and you want to hold it for quite a few seconds in order to make sure that that color transfers. You want to move it every so often in order for you to make sure you get all of the areas. Once you're done with your piece, simply remove the iron and very carefully peel back the infusible ink sheet with your little pattern, and just be very careful because this is going to be really hot. And then you repeat the process with the rest of your coasters. Now, if you notice, the original coasters had some gold on the rims, so I wanted to add that touch as well. And all I did was take some rub and buff and just use my finger to add it to all of the edges of the coasters. And then I just let them dry completely, and here is how they turned out. Alright, so it's time to check how we did. The original coasters were 4 for $68, and that was on sale. And for mine, with the cost of the coasters as well as the infusible ink sheet that I used for this one, I only used one sheet, as well as the rub and buff that I already had on hand, but I went ahead and allocated a little bit of money from what I had previously spent for it, and I only spent about $17 in order to recreate this look for less. Alright, so I found a new coastal decor place a lot like Serena and Lily, and this one is Kylini Coastal. Oh my goodness, they have a lot of beautiful stuff. Of course, everything is above my budget. And I found these navy stripe photo frames, and they were so beautiful. The larger one was $68, and if you recall, I bought this at a thrift store previously, and I thought that this would be perfect in order to recreate this look. The first thing I did was take it apart and wipe it down. And at first, I had the bright idea of painting it white by hand. Of course, this was taking too long and it was going to take so many different steps. And I just thought, wait a minute, there's a better way. Sometimes our ideas don't always come to us right away. And I decided to spray paint it instead. So outside we went and we began spray painting, and this worked so much better, so much faster. And of course, with spray painting, I'm not going to have to worry about my transfer tape lifting up and then peeling off the paint like it would have if I would have continued to hand paint it. Now this one's going to be a little tricky, and I'm going to try and explain it as best I can. But I went over to the left-handed menu and I got me a square that you can adjust in order to make a rectangle. All you have to do is unlock the measurements and you can make it longer like I just did there. Now, this is where we're going to be using the slice tool. And I was kind of working as I went. And basically we want to create the lines that go all the way around, creating those smaller rectangle frames on the blue frame. So I was recreating that same rectangle that you see and making it a little smaller, as you can see here. Eventually I will create individual frames by using this slice method, and you'll see in just a minute. Now, as you can see, I created several rectangles smaller than each other, trying to make sure I kept them all the same width. Now, after I had started this, I realized that I needed to create the opening for the picture in the frame. So I pulled the largest rectangle. Now, this rectangle is the same exact size as the perimeter of the frame. So it is exactly the same height and width as the frame on the outer edge. So I basically created a rectangle for the center area of the frame, and I put it in the middle of this large rectangle here. This is where the picture is going to go on the frame. I changed the color of it to just see it a little bit better. And then basically what you do is you select both images after you have made sure you got the right size and you aligned it both vertically and horizontally to make sure it's right where you need it to go. And then you select both images and then you hit the slice button. As you can see, you'll be able to pull apart the pieces, and now I have the face of my picture frame right here. And you won't need that centerpiece anymore, so you can hit delete and get rid of it. And so next I began pulling from the original rectangles on the left, and I began putting them together and slicing them as well. That way I can get those individual little rectangular lines that I needed for the perimeter of the frame. As you can see here, there's probably going to be an easier way to do this. This is just how I figured out how to do this. So as you can see, I kept combining them and then using my slice button in order to create these little frames, as you see right here. Of course, I would get rid of the areas that I did not need and just keep the frame. Then I would bring it over to the larger frame on the right and just kind of stack everything together. So here you can see I had already sliced the area that I needed to remove on the right, and I am about to add this one right here, and I'm going to do the process again, and you will see the different rectangular pieces come to life as I remove these layers by slicing away. Now, while this might seem a little bit complicated and maybe even a little overwhelming, I personally love projects like this because it really gets me to thinking on what it is that I can do to recreate these looks for my home. And by simply using a rectangular tool and the slice command in Cricut Design Space, I'm able to do this on my own. And as you see here, it's just coming to life. This is the pattern that I saw on the frame, and here I have it ready to pretty much cut. Now, once your final design is completed, make sure you attach everything with the attach command so that nothing gets separated when you go to make it. All you gotta do is hit the button, and this one's really easy because this is just gonna be your premium vinyl application. And you'll just need to select that and feed it into your Cricut. And at least for this one, the weeding went smoothly. Thank goodness. Next, it's time to get some transfer tape and then apply it onto the surface. But first, you want to make sure that you use your little scraper tool and you just rub it all over so it attaches to your transfer tape like it should. Then you want to peel it off in one piece like this. Then, of course, very carefully try to make sure you get that edge nice and sharp, and then apply the transfer on your frame and make sure that that vinyl adheres onto your surface. Then peel back very slowly and check out your design. All right, let's see how we did. The original frame was $68 and mine only cost $7.50 to recreate. Now, of course, it's a little bit wider, but it has more of those smaller navy blue frames around it, and I think it just looks even better. But this was for the $4 frame that I got thrifted, as well as some part of my spray can because I know you guys like me to include the spray paint even though I already had it on hand. So a couple dollars from spray paint, as well as one sheet of vinyl in a navy blue, and this is how it turned out, and it looks pretty amazing. So for our third project, we are going to be recreating these green fern framed prints, and you can buy them individually or you can buy them all in a set of 4, which will cost over $1,000. Holy cow. And I decided that I can recreate something very similar, and here's how. Now, I had these frames that I picked up at a thrift store a few months ago, and these were $1.99 a piece. I actually got 6 of these frames, and they were in pretty much brand new condition. Now, I'm not going to change the color of these frames because I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to put them in the cottage or in our new home. So just keep that in mind when I recreate this look. Eventually, I may change the color, but for now, we're keeping them as is. So I go over to my Cricut design space and I search up burn, and I keep my reference picture handy, and I start looking through all of them and trying to pick out the ones that look similar to the original prints, and here is one of them. Now this is going to be pretty easy. I am just going to want to resize these and cut them out and create stencils out of these. Now, before I cut these out, I decided that I wanted to save them individually so that I can make sure I can go and find all of the pieces that I needed or the different prints that I needed for this particular project before I started cutting away. So here I just created a Look for Less May folder so I can keep all of the different prints or projects that I'm going to be doing for this video all consolidated in one folder, which I think is really cool to have on here and just be able to organize a little bit better in Cricut Design Space. So here I am looking for my new fern, and this is what I chose. I resized it for the size that I needed it, I saved it to my folder, and then I went to pick my next pattern. Now for this one in particular, it didn't have the exact one from the third print. So what I did was I got the closest thing to one of the leaves of it, and then I decided to duplicate it, and then of course change the position and mimic the image from the original frame. Then, of course, after I saved each of these individual files, I made them separately. And I wanted to make them separately because, first of all, I was going to cut them separately anyways because they were going to go on 4 different pieces of scrapbook paper. But it was just easier for me to just cut these out smaller and have these cut one by one. And of course, when creating stencils, you want to weed the inside of the image or the actual image instead of pulling out the perimeter of it, right? Keep that in mind. And I was very happy that I was able to find patterns for all 4 of these different designs in Cricut Design Space. They really have a lot of options, and they make it really easy for you to find your pattern there and not have to scour the internet in order to find something in particular. Now, same as a permanent vinyl, you're going to want to use transfer tape for this as well. And I like to make sure that my transfer tape is used several times. If it's too sticky, your vinyl will just stick to it, and then it'll be, a pain to remove. So make sure you keep your transfer tapes that you use several times and have them a little bit less sticky. And then a way you can do that is you can always let it stick on your shirt. That way it grabs a little bit of lint, and then it's easier to work with if it's brand new. I use the insert leaflets from the picture frames in order to use as a template to cut out some scrapbook paper that I had on hand. That way I can make sure that each frame had a perfect fit. I used a white scrapbook paper for the backdrop, or the matting if you will, and I used a tan one for the actual print where I'm going to be doing the stencils. For the smaller one, for the prints, I actually measured it at about 5.5 by 7.5 inches, and I only ended up using 2 sheets because this was considerably smaller than my 8 by 10s that I used for the white paper. And then it was time to transfer over the stencils onto the smaller pieces. Once they were all set, I took some acrylic paints that I had on hand, and with a small artist brush, I began brushing it over all of these stencils. And I made sure to not mix the paint as much and make it all uniform. I wanted variation in the leaves, just like the original paintings. So I did like some of the, striations that not mixing the colors gave me by doing this. Now, I didn't mix different colors for the different types of plants. I just did the same color scheme throughout because the original prints were also like this. They were all pretty much the same hues of green. And once everything was painted and for the most part dry, not completely, I removed the stencils. And then obviously if I had all of my craft supplies, I would have used something a little different. But as of right now, this is what works. And as you can see, you can do DIYs for your home with very simple stuff. My daughter here had some tape. We found some tape, and she folded it over onto itself, created double-sided sticky tape, put it on all 4 corners, and then centered it onto the white scrapbook paper that I cut earlier in order to create that same look of the original pieces. You can also use measuring tape in order to make sure that your print is centered as well. Then it was just time to assemble the frames. Now, for purposes of this video, I did not put the glass back in because if I did, I would have a pretty strong glare whenever I'm trying to take photos or videos of it. So as you can see here, I am putting them in without the glass. But if I were to actually put these up in my house, I would put the glass back on them. And that was it for this project. Let's see how they turned out. Alright, let's see how we did with this final look for less. The original pieces for the set of 4 were $1,000.99, which is wild to me, but hey, there must be a market for it. Now, when taking into account the price of the frames, the price of the scrapbook paper that I use, I did try to calculate it out, as well as the stencil that I used for this and the paint, I came up with a total of $15.50 for all of 4 of these. Now, even though they are different colors, as you can see here side by side, the actual prints, what I created, are very similar. in style. So you can get pretty close with just the designs already in Design Space, and then using the paint and just using different variations of the colors of it really did pull this together. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below which one of these Look for Less Dupes was your favorite. I would like to thank Cricut for sponsoring today's video. I will have all of the items that I used in this video linked in my description box below if you guys want to recreate these yourselves. I'll also include a link to all of my Look for Less playlist videos. That way you can check out more inspiration just like this. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you're well, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, adios.